out by Hussein Abdul-Hussain, Research Fellow at the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies, the FDD. Great to see you, Hussein. Thanks for joining us. I mean, it did start out as a pretty positive story, didn't it? Israel perhaps developing ties with a country it has no relations with. It has, however, taken a pretty bad turn for the worse, hasn't it? What happened in your view?
Well, like you're saying, I think it was too good to be true. And I think the irony is that these nations that have had what's called the Arab Spring, they effectively replaced their dictators and autocrats with the rule of mobsters. So you would think the Arab Spring and the spread of democracy means that even in case there's opposition to whatever Foreign Minister Mangoush did, you would think that there'd be discussion, there'd be petitions, call for elections, all sorts of tools that are used in democratic countries and systems. Unfortunately, none of this existed or happened in Libya. What we saw instead was mobsters burning tires, burning Israeli flags, and carrying the Palestinian flags, and at times even carrying these flags upside down, which told me that I'm not sure that they knew how the flag looked like. So all of this looked like an internal settlement of scores, and this is how Israel has been used in domestic Arab politics over the past 70 years at least.
And we were just talking about how the meeting fits into the power play between Khalifa Haftar, the warlord who has the support from the east, and Prime Minister Dbeibeh, who rules part of the country from Tripoli. What's your take on that?
Well, these fronts have been changing over the past decade at least. And I think most of the time what they do is that even if they don't disagree on a topic, I doubt that General Haftar is against peace with Israel. And we know that he's had connections and talks with Israeli officials in the past. But even if he doesn't oppose peace, he will use it against his rival, and vice versa. If Haftar had been the one who started this, then I think Dbeibeh would be the one who would counter him. So most of this is spite, and most of this is just instigation against the other, using whatever tool present at their disposal. And like I said, Israel has been used. I mean, I can think of dozens of examples from the history of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt, where Israel is always used as the bogeyman that you use against your rival in domestic politics.
Right, and I mean, do you think this to a certain extent shows us the limits of normalization? The current Israeli government really keen to score some kind of breakthrough when it comes to expanding the Abraham Accords. Is there a sense of frustration, even desperation there, do you think?
It shows us the unfortunate limits of Arab democracy, the limits of Arab government, and what happens when you don't have a strong central authority that calls the shots and that can deliver on its promises. What you see in Libya is a no man's land. No one knows who's speaking on behalf of the country. Like technically what happened in Sudan. Sudan, of course, we know that Sudan normalized with Israel to an extent. Whatever that normalization means, no one knows who speaks on behalf of Sudan. So the same thing would have happened in Libya. Even if Israel would have gone all the way to normalization with Dbeibeh, no one knows whether Dbeibeh could have delivered on whatever agreements he entered into. And then the same thing happened with the Palestinians, with Arafat, who could never rein in Hamas. And this same template goes on and on. So the problem is within the model of the Arab government. And then as a follow-up, this is severely and negatively affecting peace and normalization between the Arabs and Israel.
Well, initially it reminded me of a situation when we saw dozens of Iraqi Kurds calling for normalization with Israel a couple of years back, and they were subject to death threats pretty quickly. It all turned pretty scary for them. I mean, it is a reminder, isn't it, that the idea of normalization with Israel is still pretty toxic in a lot of these countries.
Well, it is toxic because whoever has the power, whoever has the muscle can beat anyone who calls for peace and normalization. But this should undermine the idea that the Arab populations are opposed to peace with Israel ipso facto. If you look at these voices that surface every now and then, whether in Iraqi Kurdistan, whether in Iraq itself, whether in Lebanon, Syria, and now you see Libya. We know that these voices exist. And we also know that the thugs will never let these voices to express themselves. So the point here is that the assumption that all of the Arabs, that there's consensus among the Arabs against Israel, I think this undermines the assumption. There are pro-peace voices. We see them being beaten, sometimes assassinated, and at the very least, you will see burning of tires and of the Israeli flags.
Yeah, and that was one of the criticisms of the Abraham Accords originally, wasn't it? The peace deals with the UAE, Morocco and Bahrain. It was that this is government-to-government peace. It doesn't reflect the will of the people. Are you seeing any signs of change, do you think, in some of the countries we've talked about?
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you take a trip to the UAE, you will see that this is not government to government, because you see Israelis just walking down the street and even speaking Hebrew loudly. And this was not imaginable a few years back. I think if you let people express themselves, you will get a significant chunk of the Arab population in every Arab country, not only the UAE and Bahrain and Egypt and Jordan, even in Iraq and Lebanon, countries that I know really well. If you leave people to express themselves, you will see them calling for peace, and this is a fact.
Hussain Abdul-Hussain, great to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well.